Hi my friends, I'm back. My name is Debbie and I'm on the creative design team at Sizzix, and I'm so happy to be back at Scrapbook.com introducing to you our newest member of the family. This is our Stencil and Stamp Tool. It not only stamps, but it does stencils as well. But right now I'm going to walk you through the layered stamping. Now our layered stamping is a technology that we have that starts you from the beginning of the solid image of the stamp all the way to the end. Now this is our gift wrap layered stamping set. It gives you the gift boxes themselves, decorative items to add to your already stamped design with a little gift wrap pattern paper, as I say, and also the ribbon. So it's all up to you to create and design your own wrapping paper, whether you're doing this on a tag or on a card. So you start with the first stamp itself, and that is always the initial solid piece. And this one in particular is the actual rubber stamp gift box. So on the Stencil and Stamp Tool, it has the platform here, and you also have the rubber stamp cover. Right here is a grid. The grid pattern is etched onto the cover. What it does is it just kind of lines up along the sticky grid so you can kind of position and make sure your stamp is even. But what you're going to do is you're going to lay down your clear stamp onto your paper with the stamp down. Once you have the position exactly how you want it to be, you're going to go ahead and lower this, press down, and voila! They're ready for you to create and stamp onto. It's going to stay registered the entire time you use it, as long as you don't move your card or whatever tag or card front that you're stamping onto. Keep that there and it'll stay registered the entire time. Once you ink it and press it down, if you notice that there's an area that you didn't completely cover, you're going to go ahead, leave that on there, take your stamp pad, ink it up, and bring it back down until its coverage is completely exactly how you want it to be. So I'm going to start with the lighter color. We love to use the archival ink, the permanent ink, because it gives a nice solid coverage of your image. So I'm going to stamp it with the ink pad onto the rubber stamp. And I'm going to go ahead and press it down. Now when I notice, oh darn, it didn't give complete coverage, I'm going to take my ink pad and just keep doing it until it's exactly how I want it to be. It might take a few times, but since I haven't moved it around and I haven't moved my base, it's going to enable me to make sure the coverage is full. Now part of the design itself might not have full coverage on the stamp. It might be part of the stamp design. So I'm not going to worry about that because that's kind of the image that the rubber stamp is supposed to be. So you see these little empty spots? That's exactly how it's supposed to be and intended on the design. So each area that I put the ink on, it just gets darker and darker. So that's how it's intended to be, so I'm going to leave that there. Now I want to decorate and make my own wrapping paper design. So all of these stamp designs have their own corresponding image. Whether you're going to do a little swirly pattern on the small one or the polka dots on the larger one, it's up to you, or just leave it blank altogether. So this is the design I want to have on the larger one. I'm just going to lay that down there like that. It matches up exactly onto the stamp itself. Same size, so you know it's going to be registered perfectly. On this square one, I'm going to take this little squiggly, lay that down there on there like that. And on this last small one, I'm going to do this little pattern here. And I'm going to position it right there on there like that. Lift these up, since I no longer need those. Close up my ink pad so it doesn't dry out. You don't want to dry out your inks. Take that one off. And I'm going to go ahead and push this down again, and it's ready to add the new color. I'm going to be doing a dark green. And you don't have to worry about the ink getting on here because it wipes off, and it'll wipe off with a baby wipe, wet paper towel, whatever you use to clean off your surfaces. And I could have used different colors, but see how it matches up perfectly? Those designs are intended for each shape. And then the space right here, that's where the ribbon will go. And that's the next step that I'm going to be doing. So if I want to have it a little bit darker, I'm just going to do it one more time. And I could have done pink, green, blue on this, whichever. So it's up to you however you do it. But you're the designer, you get to do whatever you want. So that's all ready to go. Now I want to add the ribbon. I'm just going to position it there like that. Take that one off. Position this one right here. Actually, I might do this one at an angle. It kind of gives it a little fun way of wrapping. And then one last one. I'm going to do this one here, just there at the top. Take all of these off. Press that down, and now those are good to go. Put my ink pad back, and then I'm going to use just black just because it's the darkest one. Stamp that up. Press it down, and there you have it. How easy is that? Layered stamp, however you want it to be. You could cut each one individually. You can cut this whole thing out into a tag, add a little sentiment, and you've got a perfect card to give away. Okay, now I'm going to share with you a card making project that I've created using the Painted Flowers layered stencil. So like I said before, we start with the lightest color, and then we blend it onto layer number 1. So all the layers are numbered at the top of the stencil, and I'm just going to go ahead and create my background. Layer number 1 is always the one that is the background, kind of like a washed design behind the main star image. And on this one, the star image is the painted flower. So as heavy as you'd like, as dark as you want, you're the maker. You get to create any color palette that you want. And I'm going to stop here. So I've got my background there. I could have done it a little darker. I could have added another shade, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like that. Next one is layer number 2. And that is the flower base. Now the flower base has just a full shaped flower. It's the main background of the flower. It's just kind of your first layer. Well, the first layer is the background, but the first layer of the flower is layer number 2. So that's going to be just the next shade darker. And I'm going to use the Kitsch Flamingo Distress ink. Now we love the distress inks on our stencils because it gives you a nice vibrant shade. And I'm just going to start it off to the side and bring it towards the center. And as heavy-handed as you are, as light-handed as you are, you get to guide it however you want it to be, just to create the exact variation of colors. And just bringing it lighter towards the center is what I've decided to do here. And very faint in the middle. And just the edges, I kind of want to have more of an outline color. So I'm just going to do it like that. Okay, so there's layer number 1, just a subtle little center area for the main part of the flower. Next is layer number 3. That has a little bit more detail, so that means the color is going to be a little bit darker. Now remember, you always want to start with the lightest color and then go into the darker color. So I'm going to be using picked raspberry. And then I'm just going to bring it in a little bit darker towards the center where I left it a little vacant. And just a little light touch going around. And since I'm not moving my material underneath the paper, the paper here that I'm stenciling on, it's going to be perfect registration. So if I change my mind and want to go back, I can just lift it and put it back on. I'm not going to lift my paper because then I'll lose my registration. It won't line up perfectly. So there's the next shade of pink, and then the final one, which is a lot darker, I'm going to be using stencil number 4. That's also where I'm going to add a little bit of our effects, and I'm going to do crystal glaze, but I also want the crystal glaze to come through the color. So the crystal glaze dries clear, but the color underneath will still show up. And I'm going to be using the Seedless Preserves, and that is a oxide. Actually, let me change my mind. I'm going to use the Villainous Potion because this is my friend Taylor's favorite color. Go ahead and stencil number 4 is on there. And I'm going to apply it right on there, just a little bit. Certain areas will be a little darker, so that's kind of, I guess, where the sun is shining through. Creating a little bit of shadow. And we lift that up. And then you can see the design coming right through. And I want it to be a little heavier there, so I'm going to put this back down. And since everything stayed in place except for the stencil's locking back in place, the registration is going to be absolutely perfect. nothing gets changed because the material underneath stayed put. Okay, there we have it. So say I want to add just a little bit more color onto that background. I think I want to add a little bit of maybe a green to it. Everything stayed the same, nothing was shifted. I'm going to go ahead and add a little more color to my background panel. Add a little bit of green there over the pink. And since it's oxide, I just love how they blend together. There we go. So you can still add to it even though it's already on there because I didn't change the position of any of my paper underneath it. So the top layer is where I wanted to add my crystal glaze, and that's the final layer. So that's layer number 4. Since I know this is dry, I'm going to position this back on top, and then I'm going to take my glaze. So with the crystal glaze, it's got the glitter inside of a glaze, so it dries clear and the glitter shows through. The purple underneath will show through the glitter, and it gives a great finish to your project when it's all done. Adds a little dimension because you can feel the actual texture of the glitter. So I'm going to use our texture tool to wipe the crystal glaze through, and all 4 sides have a different texture, and I'm going to use the straight edge. I'm just going to wipe it through with just a thin layer. So the negative portion is the part of the stencil where the crystal glaze went through, and it's a great final touch to the project. As soon as I'm done with any of the paste or glazes, I want to immediately put it into a shallow dish of warm soapy water. And this project is perfect. As soon as it dries, I'm going to go ahead and trim it down for a card front. So I've gone ahead and I've adhered our cherry blossom cardstock to our purple dust cardstock, and I have an adhesive on the back of my finished stenciled card front, and there we have it. So I'm going to go ahead and add one final sentiment from our Sunny Side Sentiment rubber stamps. So with our Stencil and Stamp Tool, I'm going to take the stamp that I've decided to use, but first I want to make sure that my panel is in the position that I want it to be on here. And I want to use the message that says, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. But what I want to do is I want to add it to a small little paneled stamp. But I only want to have the 2 words, be kind. So I'm going to have something just to hide that one part there so the ink doesn't get onto that area. So let me take this off, and I want to just position this on here. We've got this grid with the perfect graph image on the sticky grid, so it's going to adhere down. And the part that says be kind, I want that to be centered, and I'm going to lay that down there on there like that. Lift it up, and it's ready to go. I want to make sure I cover this part up because that's the part I don't want to have inked. And I'm going to use our Sizzix embossing powder with our embossing ink. So I'm going to go ahead, cover that area there because I don't want any ink to get on it. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that up. Now I can lift that up because no ink got on there. And I'm going to press that down. I'm going to make sure that it is fully covered and do it again. Make sure there's no ink on that. And it's fully registered because I know for sure that I didn't move my little card at all. So it's inked up. You can barely see it because it's a clear embossing. And I'm going to put it in my funnel tray. The reason I'm going to do funnel tray is because I'm just going to completely coat it with our cobblestone embossing powder. And it has a little bit of glitter in it. And I wanted to completely cover that up. Tap it clean. I'm going to go ahead and brush this off, the little excess. If I rubbed it off on the ink, I can go ahead and make sure I reapplied it because the ink is still a little bit damp. Clean that off and move that off to the side. Take this off, and now with my heat tool I'm going to emboss with the embossing powder. This is the cobblestone with the heat tool. And you can start to see it bubble up, almost like a raised printing technique. And once it's all bubbled and you can't see any of the excess glitter on there, then you know it's good to go. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere it onto a solid piece of the purple desk. Center it onto there like that. Cut a small piece of the foam, double-sided foam tape. It adds a little bit of a dimension to the project. And that'll be my final little addition, embellishing the card. Love our foam tape. It's very strong and that little panel is not going to go anywhere. So wherever you want to position it, I'm going to do a little bit off to the side here. And there we have it. A stencil and stamp tool using effects, the layered stencils, and one of the Sunnyside sentiments.